YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my updated college football rankings before week 8. Back every single week, updating my rankings, and I also have NFL power rankings every single week. And we got college and NFL predictions every week, plenty more. Hopefully you can join us for all of that. Before we get started with my rankings, we do have a 40K subscriber goal here at the Goat House, so please help us out by subscribing. We're getting closer and closer to that goal since football season started, so appreciate you guys very much. Again, we got you covered with full NFL and college football content all year long. Click that like button. Check us out on Twitter. You can get extra mock drafts every single week if you sign up for our Patreon. There's plenty more you can get from the Patreon as well. Link in the description for that. To the rankings, some movement here at the bottom, actually. Like I said last week, further along we get, the undefeated teams will, rise up if they deserve to, because, no matter who you play, it's just very hard to stay undefeated, and we see some teams cutting it close there. But number 25 is, not an undefeated team, but a team in Temple who has some very solid wins this year, and just this past week they beat a team, Memphis, who is now out of my top 25 because they were in there last week, obviously. So Temple, a good mixture of, good play on both sides of the ball. Memphis is pretty good scoring, so they did give up some good points, but throughout the year, they executed pretty well on both sides of the ball. There's some battles in that conference coming up. Looking forward to that. Number 24 is Washington, back in the mix. At the end of the day, I do think this team is better than the 24th best team in college football. They're better than that. But based off what they've done, what other teams done, this is where they belong. They've had their hiccups during the season, but they got a lot of talent. They just got to continue to execute. But back into the top 25 after an impressive win over Arizona. Undefeated Appalachian State's at 23. Maybe not the most impressive wins on their resume, maybe one or two here and there, but continue to stay undefeated, well-coached team. No matter who's in there, they keep losing their coaches, but very impressive team. They're up to 23, so we see what undefeated could do to your team here in these rankings. So you really could rise up. Number 22 is Missouri. Still weird that they lost that first week against Wyoming. You can see in that game, they're the better team. They just blew the game, crucial mistakes. But ever since then, they've turned it up. Looks like a real good team. You think they should be undefeated right now, and they can be, way better ranked than number 22. So that one still stings a little bit for Missouri, but they're making their way up right now. Same with Cincinnati. They have one loss against Ohio State. They did get beat pretty bad, but it's a good loss. I don't value the good losses as much as I think the college football playoff poll has done in the AP poll. But still, I guess it means something. But I just don't. I think people value those too much. But other than that, some pretty good wins. I think they're good on both sides of the ball. Another thing I look for is, team execution, not just star talent here and there. But good on both sides of the ball. Definitely a team that's getting better. They're at number 21. At number 20 is Texas, another team. I do think they're better than number 20 when it's all said and done. But based off how they've played, 2 losses, I know, against the 2 really good teams. But other teams, how well they're playing, they have to be down here. I can't have a 2-loss team much higher than this at all. So Texas is at number 20 for now. Number 19 is an undefeated SMU. So there's an example. We know Texas is better than SMU, but I just don't think that's how ranking should be. We're kind of assuming things. Yeah, we're pretty darn confident Texas would beat SMU, but you can't go off assumptions, which I think a lot of people and the actual ranking systems do. We have to go off what we know. What we know, SMU is an undefeated team. They're rolling. Texas has 2 losses, and they could execute a little better. So number 19 is SMU. Number 18 is an undefeated rolling team, Minnesota. After I saw them execute against Nebraska, I'm thinking they're going to go higher than this. There's just not a lot going on ahead of this for teams to come down. But Minnesota is, the Big Ten, I think, is on the weaker side because there's a lot of free wins. And there's a couple dominant teams at the top, but Minnesota is a sneaky team that's rising up there. They're at 18. This team really could start climbing too. Arizona State's at 17, some big-time key wins this year. Another one this past week. Cutting it close sometimes, but they know how to execute, get it done. Well-coached team with some talent. Baylor at 16, they really cut it close. They went to overtime with Texas Tech, which I thought they would, I didn't think they would easily win, but I thought they would control that game for the most part. So thought about dropping them a little bit, but they have some key wins this year. No reason to drop them. That Iowa State win was big. Another one of those teams. I like them on both sides of the ball. For a Big 12 team, they can play some defense, and they know how to score. So, and they dealt with some injuries this year, and then pretty strong coming back with them. So they're at 16 for now. Let's see if they can continue this run they're doing. Number 15 is Michigan. Really, that win over Iowa when Iowa was undefeated is really what keeps them up. Without that, they would be a lot lower. They've had their struggles this year, but looks like they're getting better. Not this week, but next week, a big one against Notre Dame in Michigan. So that's going to be a huge game for both those teams. So they're at 15. Rising up big time is Boise State at 14. I was doubting them a little bit because I haven't been, they're undefeated, so that's impressive. They got some new players here, new quarterback, so that's all impressive. But they haven't been really that impressive with some of their wins. Cut it close, struggle at times, mainly on defense. So I thought Hawaii was a pretty good challenge, a hot Hawaii team, and Boise really gave it to them. So I'm impressed with this team. They're going to continue to get better. They are getting better, and they're undefeated. So they rise up to number 14. Impressive team right there. Utah, which I still, that loss for them kind of hurts to USC. It just wasn't their day. They had some injuries in that game. But this team's good. This team really deserves to be undefeated, honestly. This is a good team. They're at 13. I do want to see them play some more better competition, which we'll get going forward. But another one of those teams, both sides of the ball, I like them. He's got to stay healthy. See what Moss can do when he's healthy. The guy is electric, one of the best running backs in the country. And he and the Utes are at number 13. Number 12 is the Oregon Ducks, so a Pac-12 team there with Utah. They'll be battling out this year. And Oregon, I say it every week, that this team has enough talent to be much better than number 12. That Auburn loss still hurts. I thought they outplayed Auburn in that game, but still lost. At the end of the day, a loss, a win's a win. They just got to go out and execute. I wish the play calling was a little better. I think I go over this every week. They get a little conservative, but in a very impressive win over Colorado this past week. So I almost want to bump them up for that. There's some factors going into it, but I like this Oregon team. Just on paper, when it's all said and done, they should be better, much better than 12. We'll see if they can execute, though. Number 11's Auburn. I really thought about putting Oregon over Auburn. They've just been more impressive recently. But unlike any other sport, I think this is the sport where head-to-head matters the most when it comes to ranking. NFL, head-to-head does not really matter because you have to be really good against the field. You do have in college football too, but only 4 teams make the playoff. Only the Power 5 conferences are considered. The head-to-head games matter so much in college football. There's no other really ranking system or sport like it, and that is really the difference there. I think Oregon might be the better team still, but that's just, again, a lot of assuming, and that really, you can't do that. Auburn beat them, and that still matters. They also have some good wins in the SEC. Tough loss against Florida. Florida's a very good team. Number 10, actually moving down a spot. Not really what they did, but because what's going on ahead of them is Notre Dame. And, the USC game, you wish it was a little better. It didn't look so pretty at times. They had a pretty good lead. They had control of the game. I'm thinking Notre Dame's going to blow them out. They kind of let USC back in the game. I don't know if there's nothing. It's a top 10 Notre Dame team, but besides pass rush, there's really nothing crazy going for them. I think they have weapons. Chase Claypool, he's real good. I've been calling for them to use Braden Lenzy for some time now because that guy is electric, and we saw it. I've been calling for that for a while. They finally do it. They have weapons. His book is not playing his best ball right now. Statistically, it looks pretty good, but that's where they need to step up. And defense, like I said, really good pass rush, but you can kind of move the ball in Notre Dame defense. So not really thrilled with their performance. It is a rival game that's always close, and they won, but a lot going on ahead of them where I just can't move them ahead of some of these teams. I don't agree with the AP the AP poll where they have Notre Dame ahead of some of these teams that we're going to talk about. Just don't agree. I'm a Notre Dame fan as well. I don't agree with it. Georgia's at number 9. That head-to-head comes back up, but not only the head-to-head, the schedule. I know Notre Dame has a tougher schedule this year than they usually do, but Georgia playing SEC teams. Maybe they haven't played the best part of their schedule yet, but Georgia needs to be ahead of Notre Dame. They absolutely need to be. They beat them, and I know it was a close game, and Georgia had the home field advantage big time, but they beat them. And I said after that game, that I wasn't thrilled with either team. A lot of people, SEC fans, maybe Georgia fans, giving credit to Notre Dame. for staying close. They lost the game. They didn't deserve any credit. I didn't think Georgia played that great, so I was a little worried about Georgia going forward. I did not think there was any way they were going to lose to South Carolina. Defense is good, but they lost a lot of their top-tier talent or some of their top-tier talent. Offense, like I've been saying, I said it before the season. That's why I ranked them 8 in my preseason poll. They just don't have enough on offense. They did when they need it most. They just don't have enough. They have big-time players, mainly Swift, and they lost some big-time players too on both sides of the ball. They just don't have enough, mainly on offense. So they're at number 9, still deserving to be in the top 10, still deserving to be ahead of Notre Dame. Number 8 is Florida. I have Florida over Georgia. They've been a little more impressive to me. The resume, I should say, this year. Tough loss to LSU. Even though it looked like somewhat of a big LSU win, it was close the whole game. It was kind of back and forth. Even Florida had to lead. And they got an impressive resume. Auburn was undefeated. I thought that game really, the score showed it was closer than it actually was. I thought Florida dominated that game, so Florida's resume looking a little better. We know they're a good defensive team, and their offense is actually getting going, kind of like we saw last year. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is either. And last year we saw Florida's actually got an offense. We were saying at the end of last year, it's starting to go that way this year as well. So I think, they're below Notre Dame in that AP poll. They should not be. I even have them ahead of Georgia. Their resume is pretty impressive. Number 8, and they'll play 8 versus 9. They'll play each other in a few weeks here. That should be fun. Number 7, a big mover because they're undefeated still, and they're getting some impressive wins. They were not, even though they were winning, they weren't super impressive early on, and they weren't that good early on. But just like that, they are getting good on both sides of the ball. You wish there was a little more offense in the Iowa game, but Iowa pretty good defense there, very good defense. But they're still figuring out an offense. New quarterback. They had McSorley for so long. It felt like, and they're getting things together. So they're really, can they head to head? Can they beat the teams that I have below them? That's a good question. Florida, Georgia, Notre Dame, even Auburn, Oregon. Maybe those teams I just named off would be favored. Penn State's undefeated. They're getting better and better. They got some tough games coming up. They belong here at 7. Another Big Ten team is Wisconsin. Starting to, they started off real hot, and then surprisingly on offense, they started off pretty good. Then the offense started going downhill a little bit. We know the defense is there. Started to worry a little bit, but then a big time game against Michigan State. I haven't really been a big believer in Michigan State, so I don't know if they should beat them that bad, but they should easily win. But they beat them up pretty bad, and that was impressive. So they are number 6. Number 5 is Clemson. Staying in the same areas where they were. Haven't been super impressive this year, but really at this point last year, if you think about it, they weren't really overly impressive. They were kind of close at some teams. I know they just blew out Florida State, but other than that, the resume isn't super impressive. And they kind of just figure it out when it's time. When it's clutch time, when it's the crucial moments. So they'll make their way up. I go off the resume a lot, and I don't like to assume a lot of things when it comes to rankings, especially because they're week by week. You have the chance to change these week by week, and they're not predictions at all. For that reason, can't assume things. You have to go by resumes, and I put into it how the team's executing overall. They're at number 5 still, so moving up quite a few spots. Oklahoma, I've been waiting for them to play a good team. I had the question marks of how they will play against good teams. I was confident in them, but I just couldn't rank them high because we haven't seen them play the good teams, and we haven't seen them fully execute on both sides of the ball. The defense impressed me. They did enough. They're not spectacular. They don't have the best defense in the country, not even close, but they impressed me. And a game that is supposed to be close no matter how good both teams are, just because it's one of the biggest rival games in sports, they go out and execute it. It did stay pretty close a little bit, but it's a big-time win. Texas is a good team. Like I said, talent-wise, they're better than 20. That's the win I was waiting for there. Oklahoma goes up to 4, but on to number 3. Staying at 3 is Ohio State. Very good on both sides of the ball, mainly offense. I want to see them play some better competition, though, going forward, but I like the execution. It's a unique team. It's a team I wouldn't want to play my team to play against at this moment. So they stay at 3. No reason to move that around. But there is a reason to move number 1 and number 2 around. I had Bama at 1 last week, now at 2, and LSU up to 1. Again, for some reason, people think rankings are predictions these days. Not predictions. You can go ahead and say you think Bama will beat LSU, be better than LSU. When it comes down to it, that's your prediction. These are rankings. LSU has a much, much better resume. They belong at number 1, beating Texas. Even though that game was close at time, just like the Florida game, very similar games. They put it away. They had control most of the game. Even when they were losing against Florida, never was really worried for them. Florida was looking good. It's a good football team. I wasn't really worried for LSU. I knew they were going to win that game the whole way. This team belongs at 1. Whether you say Bama is the favorite, even if they are the favorite, LSU belongs at 1. The defense, looks pretty vulnerable. It's weird because LSU had elite defense for years and years, just never can get the offense, and they finally not only have the offense, they have the best offense right now in the nation. The defense is struggling a little bit. They have playmakers here and there. I just want to see them stay consistent, and I can't wait for LSU Bama. Cannot wait for it. But LSU belongs at 1. And like I say every week, there's a clear top teams that can compete with each other. I've been calling it a top 7. It's kind of tough to call it now. I almost want to narrow it down to the 5 or 6 top teams there, but teams will continue to get better. That's what people forget. People just kind of write off teams because how they're looking. They're not going to stay the same. We see teams getting better. Penn State, I talk about getting better. Florida's offense, even though they lost, Florida's offense is getting better. Oregon, their weakness was their coaching, play calling. That's getting better. They're not afraid to put teams away. We talk about Oklahoma's defense getting better. I think Clemson will get better. That's kind of a prediction, but I think they will get better. LSU getting better and better in offense. It's constantly changing here. Really, I said there was 5 teams that were kind of elite, 5, 6 teams, but really, you take a look at the top 12. I was going to say, but maybe 13 because Utah and Oregon. It's a Pac-12 battle between who could be the best team in that conference there. I think, but really between the top 12 teams, I'd say I think anybody can almost beat anybody. I mean, you look at the top 2 teams; they'll look like the elite powerhouses right now. So maybe not those teams, but I like the depth of teams we got this year. And once again, it comes up that it's a shame that there's only 4 teams in the college football playoff. 8 teams would be. I know it's. Everybody's saying it, but 8 teams would be just imagine an 8-team playoff with this group. It would be just a blast. Even if there's a clear favor or 2 favorites, it would be, man, I'd be so excited for that. So I really now it's a little disappointing because we picture that and it's just disappointment. We were at the end of the day, it's 4 teams, but it'll be great either way. Should be some interesting battles down to the wire at the end of the season to figure out which 4 teams that'll be. We'll kind of break that down closer to the time, when we're closer to the playoff. But we also have NFL power rankings just like these. We got college and NFL predictions for every game every week, or the top games of college football. So if you can join us for all that, please subscribe. Trying to reach that goal. If you want more content, go to our Patreon link at the top of the description. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.